I was born to preach the gospel. I was born to preach the gospel. I was born to preach the gospel. And I sure do love my job. Yeah. I was born to preach the gospel. I was born to preach the gospel. I was born to preach the gospel. And I sure do love my job. Yeah. Yes, I really love my job. I'm a disciple that makes disciples that makes disciples. Oh, I'm a disciple that makes disciples that makes disciples. I'm a disciple that makes disciples that makes disciples. Yes, I'm a disciple that makes disciples that makes disciples. I'm a disciple that makes disciples that makes disciples. I'm a disciple that makes disciples that makes disciples. Get firmly rooted. So let's get firmly rooted. Let's get firmly rooted. So let's get firmly rooted. Oh, I'm a disciple that makes disciples that makes disciples. I'm a disciple that makes disciples that makes disciples. I'm a disciple that makes disciples that makes disciples. Let's get firmly rooted. Firmly rooted. Let's get firmly rooted. Yeshua, 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 Yeshua. I'm a disciple that makes disciples that makes disciples. We're disciples that make disciples that make disciples. We are disciples that make disciples that make disciples. We are disciples that make disciples that make disciples. Let's keep firmly rooted. Firmly rooted.
Hey, good morning, Rooted Men. Pastor Tom, Firmly Rooted Ministries. Hold on a sec. I want to make sure my microphone is set properly. I think it is. All right, let me set it back down. Steve Giroux, thank you very much. I thought for sure I was going to be talking to myself, but the 38-second mark of the countdown, Steve Giroux popped on. Brother, I hope you're there. Good to see you. And yeah, thank you to Steve and Ed Pila and others who filled in for Pastor Grigsby and I. Pastor Grigsby is still in Minnesota. Jenna, his wife, family lives there, so they stayed an extra day, and so I'm doing the Thursday devotions. Where's Bert Reggiani? He's had 100% attendance. All right, he might come on in a sec. So I've got 1 Peter chapter 4, verses 1 and 2, and it starts with a therefore. And we always joke about the fact that Paul makes these conclusionary remarks that can't fully be understood if you don't understand the verses prior that set it up, right? So every time you see Paul with a therefore, you got to go back and so therefore what? Therefore what? And the devotions over the last several days have been about suffering, but different types of suffering, right? There's a lot of ways that we can suffer. We can suffer from an internal grief of a mistake we've made. We can suffer from grief because someone passed away. We can suffer from grief because we get ill. We can suffer from grief because we sin and face the consequences. We can suffer for a lot of different reasons. But most recently, at the end of chapter 3, there are some unique things that he talks about, and they were covered by others this week, but I just want to touch base with them. He tells us that we should sanctify Christ, that we should set apart Christ as Lord in our hearts, and that we should always be prepared to give an answer to anyone who asks for the reason for the hope we have. And I want you to cling to that. We should be ready every single day for someone to ask us why we're so hopeful. Why are we so peaceful? Why are we so confident? Why are we so whatever it might be that they're not? We should always be ready to give an answer. But he also then says, but you might expect that at times you might be slandered, that you might be, as a Christian, Satan might attack you through other people. And then he reminds us, but don't worry about that, for Christ died for sin once for all, the just for the unjust, in order that he might bring us to God. Remember whose you are. When you suffer in this world because of a relationship issue or because of an illness or because of whatever that might be, it's just whatever it might be. It belongs to the kingdom of this world and it's temporary. But we have eternal promises that carry us into this new kingdom that we partake of now and will continue on into everlasting life. He talks about Noah and the waters of Noah. And although the waters of Noah killed all those on the earth, the waters of Noah kept a boat up above the ground, and Noah and his family and the animals were protected. And he says, in the same way, this water of the flood, symbolizes baptism that now saves you. Saves you. Baptism saves you. Baptism is more than just putting water on someone's head or dunking them into a pool. It has this power, like the Lord's Supper has a power to bring grace and forgiveness to us. And he says this water symbolizes baptism that now saves you, not the removal of dirt from the flesh, but an appeal to God for a good conscience, right? It connects us to the resurrection of Jesus. Therefore, since Christ suffered in his body, arm yourself also with the same attitude. If the most perfect person in the world suffered, not just on the cross, but suffered humiliation, suffered accusation, suffered so many things through his ministry, if he experienced those things, arm yourself with the same attitude. What attitude? Expect you're going to suffer. Expect that the blows are going to come from the strangest places. Don't build up some armor so that you can protect yourself from those blows. Because he who has suffered in his body is done with sin. Now he's talking about a different suffering. He's talking about the suffering that we go through when we begin to kill our old nature. Because it wants to live and it thinks that the stuff out there is enjoyable and that sin is everything he needs. And we're putting that old nature to death, and we suffer in a different way as we begin to kill that old nature and are forced to see by the Spirit of God new ways of living, true ways because they bring life in abundance. As a result, the one who suffers in all of these different ways and stays faithful, he does not live the rest of his earthly life for evil human desires, but rather for the will of God. And so let's leave it at that. All of this is why James says even our suffering is good for us, because we learn. It's about separating the two kingdoms and our two natures, and so that we are more in the new nature than we're in the old nature, and all of a sudden we're becoming mature in the faith. We're doing the will of God, right? Isn't that what we want? we'd like to be more in the will of God than not in the will of God. I mean, that's a pretty good goal for us men. Peter's trying to tell us how to do it. So is James and all the authors of the New Testament. We have to die to the old and rise to the new, right? If anyone is in Christ, he's a new creation. The old is gone, the new has come. All right, gentlemen, I see a couple other guys popped on for a minute. Glad to have you on board. I hope other guys get a chance to catch it later in the day. Blessings on your day. Make it a firmly rooted day. And may someone see Jesus in us today. Peace.